Hey there, today, the moon continues in Leo, and we will talk about today's mood of the day. We will also jump in with installment number 4, looking at the upcoming solar eclipse in Virgo. Such a fascinating chart for the upcoming eclipse. And I've had already 3 installments looking at different components of how the planets are aligning during this eclipse. So we're going to continue on that trajectory today, looking at the kite that is in the chart for the eclipse. What is a kite? Well, we'll talk about that and what it means in today's edition. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Marina Orms, and this is the Astro Vibe for Thursday, September 18th. So, really quick, just to look at the mood of the day. The mood of the day is the Leo moon energy, and we are, winding down the current moon cycle. So as we are going through this process of change that we're moving through with these eclipses, look at your own life, your own circumstances, sort of what are you being pushed through, right? What doorways, what change processes, what new ways of seeing yourself or the world around you are showing up for you. And as we wrap up the work of the current moon cycle that also began with a Leo new moon, no, sorry, Virgo new moon, getting my Leos and Virgos mixed up. So we're in 2 Virgo new moons in a row. At any rate, we're wrapping up that first Virgo new moon where we've been doing the work of figuring out how to attend to the details of our lives, our daily routines, the work we do and how to do it best, how to get things in order, how to straighten things up, be more effective and more efficient. So that's been the work of this moon cycle, kind of cleaning and clearing to make way for the bigger picture of how we are changing and what we are becoming. So, with the Leo moon energy today, we can facilitate this process of sort of shaking it off. What are the feelings that have come up through this process? How can we move those feelings through movement and expression? So, working on something creative, doing something fun, joyful, especially if it gets you moving your body, moving your voice, right? Singing, dancing, going for some sort of exercise, yoga, I don't know, whatever feels like your thing to get moving, because that will help sort of clear away what has been coming to the surface and make room for this continual process of change that we are going through. If you were to look at what is unfolding right now in your life and in the world through the lens of seeing this as a cleansing, a clearing, a healing process, would that change anything about how you see things, about how you think about them, about how you understand what is happening around you? Because Virgo is about cleaning, clearing, and healing. So that gives us some bigger context to understand, why might some of the things that are coming up right now be coming up? Well, Virgo energy helps us to see what's wrong, right? I was talking about that in yesterday's video, installment number 3, right? How Virgo energy is the energy of, we see it as being nitpicky or perfectionist because that Virgo energy says, I need to be able to see what is wrong so that I can fix it. So, how are we doing that work of being able to see what is not right and therefore do something about it, right? So whatever you're noticing, see it, try seeing it through that lens. And then with the Leo energy, think about, where you need to just move some energy, and do something creative. It could be writing. That's another way to be creative, right? It could be gardening. It could be cooking. But you see how the process of being creative helps us to sort of shake things off and move whatever has been coming to the surface and do that cleaning and clearing work through the Leo dynamic of movement and expression, having fun. Of course, Leo likes to be seen and be the center of attention as well. So maybe there's some sharing with others that might be helpful as well. So from that, we're going to shift now into talking about the kite in the eclipse that is coming up on Sunday, September 21st. We're getting really close and we are already feeling the eclipse energy. Of course, we are also coming out of a lunar eclipse in Pisces that was also very potent. So if that lunar eclipse opened a gateway to something emerging into your consciousness, we now must work with what has emerged in our awareness and what we're going to do with that new information, our new sense of what is calling us in that bigger picture. What is the bigger spiritual wisdom that we need to be in alignment with? Spiritual guidance. So, Pisces transcendent energy is saying, what is your bigger picture of meaning? Where have you closed yourself off from your own true spiritual path? Where do you need to get back on track with that? And then the Virgo eclipse coming up on Sunday says, how are you going to live that spiritual path in your day-to-day life here in the physical world with all of its imperfections, with all of the physical realities that are here, to help us grow. So looking at it through that lens, that this is really a bigger healing process, and if we take advantage of it, we can clear some old energies and step into new possibilities. So, what is a kite? A kite is a grand trine, and a grand trine is an equilateral triangle. So, all three sides of the triangle are equal, of three planets. So, in this case, we have a Pluto, we have Uranus, and we have the sun and moon forming a grand trine. And that sun and moon is in at 29 degrees Virgo during the new moon, exact new moon, and that is an eclipse. And in a grand trine with Pluto at 1 degree Aquarius, Uranus at 1 degree Gemini, and the sun and moon not quite in that early Libra. So it would be in a grand trine in air signs. Typically, you have, if there is a grand trine, all 3 points will be in the same element. So this one is basically an air grand trine, except the sun and moon are saying we're not quite ready yet. They're like just on the brink of stepping into that air Libra energy. So there is a little bit of that feeling of how we are getting things right, and I've certainly been talking about that. And if you missed episodes 1 through 3, you might want to go back and catch them. Day 1, we talked about the 29-degree Virgo point and its significance in terms of getting things ready before we shift into Libra. On Tuesday, episode 2, I talked about the opposition between the sun and moon and Saturn and Neptune. That opposition, very potent thing, pulling us in two different directions. So I spoke a little on that. And then episode 3 yesterday was about the three yods that are formed by Venus and Mars. And if you don't know what a yacht is, go watch episode 3. So that brings us to today and the Grand Trine that is also a kite. So a kite just means that we have that Grand Trine. And then additionally, we have 2 sextiles at one end of that Grand Trine. So the placement of Neptune in a sextile to Pluto and Uranus makes it form uh, double sextile, which with the sun and moon forming a Grand Trine, we have what's called a kite. So what is a kite? And how do we interpret it, right? What does it mean for this eclipse? Basically, we start with the Grand Trine, which is an easy flow of energy. So keep in mind that easy flow of energy is supporting whatever you are putting out there. So positive intentions, negative intentions, both will manifest more easily and more quickly, right? So, nothing in astrology, at least from an evolutionary perspective, is strictly good or strictly bad. Everything that we look at in astrology has a spectrum of possibilities of how we are choosing to work with it. So, with that Grand Trine, easy flow of energy, supportive to our intentions, especially our ideas, our thinking. Remember, this is air or almost air, Grand Trine, and air is about thinking, ideas, mental processing. So, how we connect with the higher ideas and ideals that can guide us forwards, and how we put things into words, how we communicate, finding the right words. So, in part, this is about finding the words to communicate that bigger spiritual picture of what is calling you forward, right? What is the healing path here from that bigger spiritual perspective and that perspective of wisdom? And then the kite part, with the 2 sextiles pointing to Neptune, which is also only 2 and a bit degrees from Saturn at 28 degrees Pisces. Again, also Saturn very um, very much part of the energetic alignments of this eclipse. So the energy of, and I spoke about this on an episode 2, I think, where we talked about the Neptune Saturn energies and how there's the dream, right, with Neptune and new beginnings in Aries, but there's also Saturn, which is the hard work, reminding us you don't get what you don't work for. So what does that work look like? It doesn't mean it's impossible. What it means is you can get there, but you have to be willing to change, to learn, to grow, to adapt, to become something new. And that process of change can be magical if we are engaging with it, if we are checking in with ourselves to ask, what is my bigger spiritual path? What is the bigger picture of meaning for me? How what would I want? If that magic genie lantern were given to me, and right, is it not just a really good idea as you're making your wish on that genie lantern to think really carefully about what you're asking for, right? So because you may not be really fully anticipating all the ramifications that can, the fallout, if you will, that might come of that wish. So, in other words, it's about putting out the positive intentions, but being careful about not overstepping, not being too simplistic, too you know superficial, but really like feeling into, there's the heart and the mind, but there's also the gut, right? What is your gut telling you? What does it feel like when you feel really grounded and connected to yourself? And you're asking, what is it I need and what choices do I need to make at this time to get in alignment with that path? So that's true of all the planets involved in this kite. Pluto, Neptune, and Saturn, Uranus, all outer planets, all, by the way, retrograde right now, which means that all of this is very much an inside job. There is internal processing that we are doing. And that internal processing means self-examination. Right? So if take a look at yourself. Are you projecting outside of yourself? Are you getting angry at someone? Are you frustrated that they're not doing what you think they should do? Because it might be helpful to ask yourself, how can I show up in a different way to engage with a positive possibility, a healing possibility, a solution, problem solving oriented approach? And what would that look like? So, if you need to step back from your own reactivity, from your own fears, right, or traumas, triggers, like whatever is coming up for you, take a step back from that. Ask yourself what you need to get back to center, to remember who you are, and to then ask, what is the healing path in this moment? What would I do in this moment if I could make real magic happen? And so that is the invitation of this kite. There is a lot of support, but again, it's going to support whatever you're putting your energy, your intention, your hopes and dreams into, right? So you might as well, A, right, go big, ask for what you really want, and B, um, make it make it deep, right? Not the superficial stuff, not the, I want um the shiny, fancy car or something, right? Like I don't know, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like make it something meaningful. Like I want to feel loved. I want to feel connected to my fellow human beings. I want to experience real healing, right? How about that for an intention? Because then you get the gift of the universe showing you what real healing looks like. Because that's what you're asking for, right? You're not asking for this simplistic thing. You're asking for something that really speaks to you at deep levels. So, feeling into what that might be for you. I hope that's helpful. And then we will dive in, continue to look at more pieces of this solar eclipse in Virgo on Sunday. I'm going to also, I think, in the next couple of days, talk about a couple of squares. These are the challenging parts. So we've got the easy flow, the support, and then we also have the challenges. So we'll be talking about those coming up in the next couple of days. And again, if you missed them, watch installments 1 through 3 to get the full background on what I've been sharing about the upcoming solar eclipse at 29 degrees Virgo that will be exact on September 21st at 12:53 p.m. Pacific time. Look forward to sharing more with you. Thank you for being here so far, and catch up on any that you may have missed. I'm Marina Orms. You can book a reading with me, take a look at your chart and how this solar eclipse might be activating something for you and how to think about it and work with it. book a reading with me at astrologyheals.com. Thank you for being here. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. That's a great way to support my work. If you're enjoying this video and want to come back and see more and get notified about future things I share. So thanks for being here, and I will see you next time with more on the eclipse and more astrology for unshakable self-care. Bye for now.